under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of the Act, the Portland Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published on January 13th, 2022 and January 14th, 2022, and posted on the district website at www.flboe.com, published in the board's designated online newspaper, the Record and the Star Ledger, filed with the clerk of the Borough of Fort Lee, and mailed to all persons, if any, who have requested said notice. Please be advised that this meeting is being taped and may be broadcasted on local TV and the district's website at a future date. The Open Public Meeting Act allows for remote participation at board meetings and defines the word meeting as any gathering, whether corporal or by means of communication equipment, which is attended by or open to all of the members of a public body, held with the intent on the part of the body members of the body present to discuss or act as a unit upon the specific public business of that body. May we please have roll call?
Ms. Joe? Here. Ms. Curry? Here. Ms. Kim? Here. Ms. Morrell?
Yeah.
Ms. Ritter? Here. Ms. Ramba? Here. Mr. Rubino?
Here.
Ms. Sasson? Here. Ms. Colback?
Here.
You have quorum.
The board convened an executive session tonight at 6:30 p.m. to discuss legal, personnel, and other confidential matters. Just before we get to the superintendent's report, we do have two walk-in resolutions tonight. We've tried to minimize those, but some things came up at the last minute. I apologize. The first walk-in is lengthy, but I'll read it. It'll be Resolution 5B as in boy. Whereas the Fort Lee Board of Education is a local board of education duly organized and existing under the laws of the state of New Jersey, and whereas employee ID number 4758 is employed by the board as a teaching staff member, and whereas the superintendent has presented evidence in support of his determination that employee has displayed a deviation from normal physical and mental health, and whereas the superintendent has recommended to the board, based upon said evidence, that employees submit to a medical examination as to determine employees' fitness for duty, and whereas the board has heard and reviewed said evidence and found it to be credible and sufficient to support a reasonable belief that employees' ability to perform his or her duties as a teaching staff member is impaired by a possible medical condition, and where NJSA 18A:16-2 allows a Board of Education to require its employees to submit to a medical examination, and NJAC 6A:32-3.3 subparagraph B permits a Board of Education to require an employee to undergo an examination, quote, whenever in the judgment of the District Board of Education, an employee shows evidence of deviation from normal physical or mental health, close quote. Now therefore be it resolved that the board in its judgment has determined that employee shows evidence of deviation from normal physical and mental health, and the evidence provided by the superintendent supports his recommendation that the employee submit to a medical examination, and be it further resolved that the superintendent, on behalf of the board, shall provide employee with notice of the board's action and a written statement of reasons. Walk-in resolution 13F, entitled Teach STEM Classes in Non-Public Schools, reads as follows, much shorter. Therefore, be it resolved that the Fort Lee Board of Education, upon recommendation of the superintendent, approves the execution of the attached agreement between the Fort Lee Public Schools and Lubavitch on the Palisades, located at 11 Harold Street, Tenafly, New Jersey, a New Jersey non-public school, to allow Amaryllis Schwed to teach classes through the NJDOE's, quote, Teach STEM Classes in Non-Public Schools program outside of her normal working hours during the 2022-2023 school year. The funding of this program is funneled through the NJDOE to be reimbursed to the district for payments made to the teacher for her participation in the program. Ready for your report.
Okay, good evening, everyone, and thank you for attending our meeting. A few other things on the agenda I would like to point out. We have our contract with William Patterson University, which will be our first contract so far for our teaching academy, and we will begin this fall. And we have a few more online that we will be submitting shortly. Along with the same lines, we have a summer program with St. Peter's University. They too will be working with us as a partnership, so that will allow our students to have opportunities for them as they go through our school system, and when they graduate, to have college credit and ideally have those opportunities presented to them. Along the same lines of colleges, we have acceptances this year of a Columbia, Cornell, Princeton, and a Yale, and we actually have very high success rates in a lot of major universities. So we're proud of all of our students and several West Point appointees as well. I would also mention that this week, on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, is the high school musical. Please go to our website, and if you have any chance, that would be a great opportunity to come see our great students perform. And we have a great talented pool of children here that are really anxious to present. There has been some discussion regarding our calendar. At the next board meeting, we will be presenting the calendar. The reason for the delay was some concerns with next year's schedule. As working with the teachers, we're proud to say that we have finally hashed out our calendar, and we will be putting that together and be done next week. There are two student representatives this evening, Kevin Sub and Min Young Suk, and I would like them to address some of the concerns and questions we have from the high school, and we're all ears. Go ahead.
Go ahead, guys. Grab that mic.
Any concern?
No concerns?
Anything exciting happening at the high school that you'd like to tell us about?
So I know that I had mentioned there's some concerns or questions regarding cats that have been brought up. So if you guys can comment about that.
Yeah, we noticed that there's this certain.
Go closer to the mic, please.
Can't mention names, right?
We're not sure what it was.
You have the mindset.
We're not exactly sure what his name is, but we seen him wearing like cat ears and gloves around the school, and at first it was like slightly surprising or like even abnormal, but like I think me and my fellow students, we've gotten used to it, and it's not really a problem or a distraction for us.
Are there multiple cats at the school?
No, just one.
Does he touch people and
No.
purr and scratch?
No, we don't think
He dresses like a cat though, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yes, cat ears.
gloves.
And gloves?
There's no litter?
No.
So a student. Okay. Anything else?
I understand he also wears a collar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else you wanna tell us? You know, tell us everything about this.
What's going on with the prom?
Prom. We're juniors.
I'm not sure.
Junior prom?
Well, we appreciate you coming and joining us and being a resource for us as to what's happening.
We appreciate being.
Good.
Is my
Thank you.
superintendent.
Do we have any committee reports?
You're the chair.
I am, but she was. So we
Take
had,
the mic.
okay, we had, a negotiations meeting that was very lengthy. It was extremely productive. There'll be more information to follow, probably in the next 1 or 2 board meetings. But it's very optimistic. That's my report. A long time, Lester.
Are there any other committee reports?
Not a committee report, but I went to school 4 fun run and the middle school fun run, and they had a dance here as well that Tanya and Catherine Galpanopoulos ran along with some other PTA president. It was a huge success. I mean, they had probably a couple hundred kids here. It was a nice show. As far as the dance and the fun runs, the two schools were pretty successful as well.
How far did you run?
Pretty far, to my car now.
It was also a middle school dance that was very successful.
In the sunset.
So, Elisa, were you? No? So I mean, I was on Monday. So, the Policy and Legislative Advocacy, Committee met, on Monday. We met with, Bin Gopal, who is, one of the senators, and he is the head of the Education Committee, just about, current issues, spoke to him. He was actually one of the sponsors of the, law that became that sex education, that created a firestorm. And in the past few weeks, we also met with our Assemblywomen, Ellen Park and Sharma Haider. And when we met with Senator Gopal, Senator Gordon Johnson sent his chief of staff to meet with us, just so that we could open up dialogue and be a resource to them on some of these kind of hot potato and cold potato kind of issues. Anyone else? Do board members have any questions or comments on tonight's agenda or any other topic?
I do. Hold on 1 second, I have to get to the page. Okay, so,
Okay,
I wanted,
Holly first.
Okay.
I just wanted, to know, if we're voting for 2CUR or are we tabling 2CUR?
At this point, the board is voting on 2CUR.
Yeah, we're voting on it. Right.
Okay, anything else?
I have a question just on, the same along the line. I know that this is just a, proposal, but how are the students selected for like the summer enrichment or the SAT programs? I'm just curious.
So for summer programs, we're opening it up to any student, any parent that wants to enroll their student. For the SAT prep program, students have to complete a certain number of requirements. So there's a meeting, that's how we ran it this past year. They were told what the requirements are.
And it
then-
offers free for the students?
Yes. Yes.
Well, I just had one question.
Sure.
Mr. Kravitz. The William Patterson 7 CUR, the contract with the agreement with William Patterson.
Yes.
It says that we're paying the tuition for the students.
Yes, that's coming from grant funding.
Okay, that's my next question, where do we have that money?
Yeah, grant funding.
Now, do we hope to get those grants next year also?
Yes, we hope to expand. There was a request even during the meeting with the senator, that a lot of the CTE programs at Bergen Academies and Bergen Tech, we'd like to see some of that money come to our public schools.
Thank you.
Paula,
Yes,
I have something to say.
yes, yeah, I know, you want to make a comment on 4P, so go
4P.
ahead.
I'm voting yes on all of them, regrettably, especially Lauren Karuba, who's our Director of Guidance. She's going to be leaving us, and I would say she's a huge asset to the board, to me personally, to everyone that goes to her. I've gone to her as a St. Rocco member on certain things, as well as a board member, and she's been my go-to person, and she's just fabulous. It's going to be a very big loss for us.
We are devastated.
What's that?
Devastated when we found out.
I'd like to say something about 2P. I'm devastated over Rob Daniello leaving. There are no words to describe how I feel about this man. No one can replace him, no one. He has done an impeccable job of being a principal for many years. He has been a role model for both my children. He has been just, there are no words to describe. I'm holding back tears because I can't imagine being here next year without him. But of course, I wish you the best and we'll be in touch. But it's a tremendous, tremendous loss for this district.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, first I'll start with Rob. I was literally sworn in, so was Candy. We were literally sworn in, we were on the board for 1 hour. And he was our first hire. And I loved him from the moment that I met him. I thought he was a phenomenal person. He did so many wonderful things for the middle school. He was so easy to talk to. He was so compassionate with the kids. And it's gonna be a big loss for us. It really is. And I can't tell you how sorry I am to see him go. I really am, with all my heart. I wish him the best. I know he's gonna have, bright future ahead of him, and I wish him well. With Lauren, I was the chair of personnel, and I remember being called into the superintendent's office because we were looking for a director of guidance at the time. And she was a firecracker. And what she's done for not only the high school, but the district, it was always just, always where the director of guidance kind of just did the high school. But with Lauren, she just went above and beyond, like, like a storm, and just re-evaluated the whole district, and just, the loss that we're gonna have with her is immense. And I love them both. I'm truly gonna miss them both, and I wish them both the best.
Anyone else? So I want to thank the donors on 4F, especially the organization that Hakisha now is president of. They are giving a scholarship of $1,000 to one of our grads this year, so really appreciate that. Paying off dividends for us, and also JPAC and the other donors. The district will miss everyone who's resigning and listed under 4P. Anyone else?
I had a question on 6F, actually, the tuition. Can I ask, just if you happen to have like the older numbers, how much they were? And I think this might be affecting perhaps teachers who are in the district or whatnot as well. So is there a way to give them perhaps, or consider grandfathering them for 1 year so they can prep for the following hike, if that makes any sense? Or anybody has any kind of financial difficulties?
Ms. Taylor, do you?
One more. I didn't notice.
So the tuition rates are determined through the budget process, and are calculated after, all of the numbers are put into the budget, et cetera. So if you're asking whether the tuition rates for employees, that would be a board decision if you didn't want to change policy or something like that. But those rates, I can get you those rates. They were board approved, I think, back in probably around this time last year. And they were similar. I believe the high school rate might be 15,392 or something like
For
that.
some reason I had 14 in my mind, which is why I thought maybe 2,000 might be too much of a jump for some people, so.
No, I can give you the exact amounts, but I think the high school rate is 15,392 sticking out. But I can go on, I think Rob is on. I'll go on and share with you what the rates are before the end of the meeting.
Any other questions before we open it to the public?
One more.
Okay, go ahead.
My copy, I'm so sorry, please forgive me, is extremely light, and so I missed the name. And that's for Mr. Dominguez. I've known him for a very long time. It's amazing that both my sons had him for English. What are the odds of that? And at such different times in their lives. He's a phenomenal person, extremely empathetic, works so well with the kids, and I wish him the best as well. And I know he's going to have a very bright future, and I wish him on all his endeavors the best.
Okay. Are we ready? Anyone else? Okay, could I have a motion to open the floor to the public?
Motion.
Motion Morel, second Curry, all in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, we'll follow our normal protocol. We'll hear first from members who are physically present here in the cafetorium. Then we'll take questions and comments from those participating remotely. For remote public participants, please select the raised hand button in the upper left corner of your screen. Our board secretary, Keisha Taylor, will recognize each community member in the order of the raised hands by lowering the hand and unmuting the microphone if you're muted. Please then state your name and home address for the record and begin your comments. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Do we have any members of the public here in the cafetorium tonight who wish to make a public comment? If so, please feel free to approach the podium. And currently we have 77 members participating remotely. You can pull it closer. Feel free, or take your microphone off if you need to.
That's good.
Name and address, please.
Good evening. My name is Sebastian Solomon. I go to Fort Lee High School. I'm a senior. I live on 276 Plateau Avenue. I'm a resident of Fort Lee. And I'm just here to talk on behalf of Fort Lee High School today in regards to finals. So a very large number of students have expressed concern about the upcoming final exams. And the reason for this are very pertinent, serious, and legitimate. To start with the primary reason, there's a lack of preparedness due to factors outside the student's control. This is since many teachers and students have been absent for large sporadic chunks of the year and primarily due to COVID infection or exposure. This has been the case for all 4 marking periods, and this leads to students not being properly prepared for a test that has a very large bearing on their grade, which can ultimately break or make students' grades. The pressure many students have from their parents and grades to do well is another key reason. The students are not prepared for these exams, so once the results are in, you can expect emails and widespread discontent from parents about their child's results. Now, if I may, just a little background. Fort Lee High School has been a little disorganized and kind of crazy over these past couple of months, and my class in particular, as well as the junior class, we kind of banded together and we wanted to make a petition just to be able to present to you guys how we felt about finals. And we kind of have my fellow partner. Is it possible to call him up?
Sure. Yeah.
Awesome. So Arthur Genser.
Come on up, partner.
Hello, my name is Arthur Genser.
Can you tip it down so we can hear you? And your name and address?
All right, my name is Arthur Genser. I live on 1241 Anderson Avenue, Fort Lee, New Jersey. And I'm here to represent essentially 1,000 Fort Lee High School students in an attempt to cancel the finals. So we believe that holding finals under the circumstances that we have been will lead to many students underperforming and dealing with unnecessary amounts of stress. I've talked to dozens of students in all grades, and all of them mentioned the stress they felt in regards to the exams and how they don't feel as if they've been properly prepared. We started a petition on the website change.org asking people, primarily students and their guardians, to sign if they want the finals at Fort Lee High School to be canceled. So far, 991 people have signed the petition. The vast majority of those signatures are Fort Lee High School students, as well as their parents. This is of all grades. What this demonstrates is very clear. Fort Lee High School students are unanimously against taking the finals this year. Not because of laziness, as many would assume, but because of very legitimate reasons that my partner has stated earlier. In summary, we believe that holding finals this year is a fundamentally bad choice for the students of Fort Lee High School. The preparation has not been sufficient. The detrimental stress incurred due to pressures from grades and parents is clearly negative for the health of FLHS's more than 1,100 students. And a vast majority of the students that attend FLHS have expressed their desire and hopes for the finals to be canceled through the petition that we created. Canceling the finals in a sensitive time is very important because FLHS students are going through a whole lot right now. Teachers have been missing and they're not properly prepared. So I just want to make it very clear that were you to decide to cancel the finals, which I believe is something that is in your power, if I'm not mistaken, then I believe that the entirety of the Fort Lee High School system would benefit, because taking finals this year is not a good idea. And
I just want to ask one question, what was the number again, 900 and how many?
so currently 991
High school students?
high school students as well as parents, but the
Okay,
majority of
okay.
people are high school students, yes. And does anyone have any questions for me? Any critiques for the points we tried to make in the case for canceling finals?
I just feel like, do you feel like your teachers, your partner mentioned that, your teachers were absent? To my knowledge, like, the teachers, unless they had COVID and were out for a specific amount of time, or the specific teachers that weren't there due to, leaves, were supposed to be there teaching. Are you telling us that you don't feel prepared by the teachers?
So the point is, yes, there is a lack of preparedness, and this is primarily due to the fact that teachers have been absent from the school for very large chunks of the year,
Yes.
primarily due to COVID-19. And it's actually not just teachers, this is also students who have been missing for large chunks of the year. I myself, one time on suspicion of having COVID and another time of actually having COVID, I actually missed more than a month of school, and this is not a rare story whatsoever.
So we appreciate you coming with all of the data and the issue, and I'm sure our superintendent will consult with the administration at the high school and have discussions.
You have 2 more students.
And we brought 2 more students with us
That's
for
fine.
further testimony.
We'll hear them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Sahat Mandigwa. I am a resident at 69 Main Street, Fort Lee, New Jersey. I am here today to speak on the behalf of my peers, the class of 2023 in Fort Lee High School, on the topic of this year's finals. As we all know, us as students have gone through quite a lot these past 3 years because of COVID-19. We successfully expressed our concerns about midterms just last year, but now I am here to discuss finals. This would be us juniors' first year taking the finals, not to mention we did not have this year's midterms, which will more than likely result in a cumulative final. We as a class believe it would make much more sense to resume the midterms and finish this in finals this next school year, as next school year would be more organized. We are still going through the effects of COVID. Just last month, extracurriculars like the musical were postponed because of COVID-19. Last week, there were 5 new cases of COVID related to the school, and even more people were sent home. This has been happening all year to the point where more than half of my peers have not been in class, and teachers have been out for days or even months. We are not being taught as accurately as possible because of this, and with finals being an important factor in our final grade, 10% to be exact, this is an assurance for stress and bad grades. We students are also the busiest we have been. As I said before, extracurriculars and events have been postponed into this May and June season. This means that on top of studying for our finals, APs, and SATs, we will have our extracurricular activities that have been moved to inconvenient dates for us, for the whole of us, to stay on top of. This is without mentioning that junior year is when we are preparing for college applications, making our junior year one of, if not the most difficult year of high school. All of these factors create an imbalance in the stress-free environment that our schools claim to have. We have already taken multiple days and weeks of testing this year, and it would not be fair to the entirety of the student body to continue this stressful, no sleep, all work lifestyle. I am coming to you not as a single student who does not want finals, but as a representative of the tired and worn out student body to ask you to please cancel the finals. Thank you for your time and patience. Thank you.
Maybe tip it down. There you go. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Lelena Seno, and I'm a junior currently attending Fort Lee High School. I live at 452 Myrtle Avenue. We're here to discuss the topic of canceling finals. I truly believe as a representative of the junior class, we have been strained from these ongoing tests. This year, we have established an NJGPA English and math test in order to accumulate a statistics of progress of the junior grade. Again, only implemented this year. On top of that, we had our SATs, and on top of that, we were due for a science GPA exam just a day after the SATs. My fellow juniors have been nonstop studying and have even taken time out of their personal lives to meet up to the standards of these tests. It is truly unfair that we continuously take tests after tests without a full period of break. I am currently studying for my AP exams and my SATs and my possible finals. It has been an ongoing struggle to maintain a balanced personal life and a school life when all my time is consumed with schoolwork. These finals are an unfair measure of students' capabilities, and it is truly unjust that one final exam is weighted so heavily. 10%, if you take into account, is a big percentage. That would mean a whole progress of 80s, let's just say, can be easily dropped down to a 77% if a student were to fail because of one test. Doesn't that seem quite unfair? And to add on, the finals have been scheduled earlier this year, so we barely have time to study and be fully prepared. I want you to consider taking these into account. Canceling finals would relieve the unnecessary stress and anxiousness that many students have been feeling this past year, especially since this year has been a year full of adjusting and trying to come back to normal. Thank you and have a good night.
Thank you. Anyone else?
First of all, these kids make me very proud. Look at them. Even in the most stable environments, learning is not linear. And if last year has shown us anything, we need to be more flexible enough to accommodate for the instability that COVID has presented. Specifically, we need to address how we are assessing our students. More specifically, right around the corner is finals. We've created a system where you all are going to vote tonight about the William Patterson dual enrollment program. One of the categories within it is you have to have a 3.0. You have students who might not be doing so well. They have to have a 3.0 by their junior year. So what happens if they don't have that 3.0 in this situation? There's C students going into finals. They can drop them down to a D. So you're implementing a program that maybe some of your students, based off their finals, aren't actually qualified for anymore. So we need to understand that these policies that we make over curriculum and these other supported programs, they need to be in tandem. One is not working on the other. One is actually working against the other, which is our grades, which these students are now rightfully here. So let us have a moment to talk about that next year when we go into curriculum planning and you talk about grading systems and rubrics at the beginning of the year, that we take into account the next year may not look any different than this year. So when we talk about finals and midterms in the curriculum planning part, we need to have some flexibility if and when we come back to the same situation we are in now, so that our kids are not stressed and tired. We talk about work-life program at work. These kids have no balance whatsoever because of the stress and the pressure that we're putting on them, and that they're putting on themselves because they see that they're behind, or they feel that. We need to have these programs that are supported both by the policies of curriculum and our grading and these other programs that you're bringing, because if not, they're going to be programs that are just going to sit there unutilized. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak?
Please remember to state your name and address.
Captain Conrad.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Hi, my name is Tanya Byers Kane, and I live at 275 Tom Hunter Road. I think everybody already knows that by now, but I am gonna first say Lauren Karuba is a huge loss to this district.
Yes.
She cares about the students. She listens. She takes each student into consideration before she makes a call and jumps. And you don't find that everywhere, so she's going to be greatly missed. I will pray that someone will come and care about the students like she did. Dr. Daniello, I'm gonna miss him. He was a visible, someone you could see in the schools. He was greeting the students in the morning. He was saying goodbye to the students. Everybody knew that he was the principal. That's important in a district, to know who the principal of the school is. And that's all I have to say on that. I have a question about a blood drive that was going on. I heard there was a blood drive at the high school today. I wasn't given any information on it. I don't know if any other parents were given any information on it. If that question could be answered, I would appreciate that, because I know back in the day, there were blood drives in school, right? I'm an old woman, so that was, a long time ago. But I haven't heard of it really since then. And with the fact that even at a school, some children are vaccinated, some people are not vaccinated. Some people have hepatitis, some people don't. We're taking blood at school. Do they have the records to do that? And do the parents have to sign off? When I picked up my student today, I said, was there a blood drive at the school? He said, yes, 16 and over. And I said, 16 and over, really? 16 and over. I don't know if that's true or not. That's why I'm asking the questions. What are the ages on that? Another thing is I'm just gonna keep pushing it. Please stop separating the children from the parents, okay? Children can be on their parents' insurance until they're way up in their 20s. So that means that they must need us for something. So we want to be part of the process. We want to be part of the high school process. I would say this is my first year at the high school, and I would love if there were a little fairy or some way that this could happen. I know I'm pretty funny, but I really would love it if there were a book that would tell parents what high school is going to be like. This is what to expect. Orientation, that would be great. You can figure out what it's about, and have, this is how it goes, this is how things are, just a little bit of how things are gonna work. We didn't have any of that, 9th grade parents that are here now. We didn't have that. We had a Zoom that was, I'm not knocking anybody. People try their best. Everybody's doing their best, but I feel like that as a 9th grade parent, it's like, you don't know what the heck's going on. You have no idea what's going on. You don't know that your kid has to have a certain class. My son was told he should drop out of band. He should drop out of band? He should drop out of band. I'm gonna stop. He should drop out of band. He was told he should drop out of band to take a class. I should have been called and said, Mrs. Byers, this is what we should look at. We should look at, you're leaving things up to 15-year-olds to make schedules, but yet they're staying on your insurance until they're 29? This is ridiculous.
Thank you, Tanya.
Yes.
Hello.
Hi, Stephanie.
Hi, Stephanie Kotsoyanis, Fortley mom. I have a big problem with any dime of taxpayer money from Fort Lee. I don't care if Murphy gave it to us, what we got it under, going to this Answers program. Okay, Answers is basically Planned Parenthood. Go read their advisory board, that's what they are. So in light of that, I want to say this. Nobody is opposed to high schoolers potentially speaking about sexual issues. We're talking about kindergarten and middle schoolers, which we have deemed already the parents in Fort Lee as predatory. So the next petition that I'll be sending out is that one. What I want to talk about is that Fort Lee, Bergen County specifically, has 9 districts of the largest increase in STDs, AIDS, chlamydia, and every other sexually transmitted disease. Bergen County is 9 of the top 32 counties in New Jersey. And guess what? Susan Wilson, the head of Answers for 30 years has been educating. So I want to know, where has the money gotten us? More sexual problems, more depression, more STDs, more HIV. Literally, we are in a 200% explosion in Bergen County for sexually transmitted diseases. Do you think these kids don't know about sex? Are they not getting enough information? So these people who are on the board of Answers are the same people who have come up with the curriculums that have been used since the 80s and have totally failed. And Vin Gopal barely retained his seat. I think he retained his seat by 600 points. I know Vin because I go to Trenton and I fight for parents and parental rights to know what's going on with their children, because nobody loves a child like a parent. And sexual issues with children in a classroom with an adult is coercive control. It is mind control. And to do it is a shame on us all. These children do not need to be thinking about sex. By the way, I asked my daughter, oh, what comes up when you look up masturbation online? My daughter's 17 years old. She goes, Mom, what are you doing? Just do a little Google search at home about the words and what comes up. And all of these children have open access. The one last thing I want to touch on is the high school is still allowing children on cell phones in the hallways. I think this is an issue that needs to be addressed. This is where a lot of the bullying takes place, between classes in the hallways. Cell phones should be able to potentially be in the backpack, but it does not need to be out during the day. These kids' brains are on fire. And my last issue, which I know my time is up, is can we hardwire? The amount of negative energy going on to these children, it is known to create depression. All the studies coming out with the Wi-Fi on these kids, they are constantly under Wi-Fi. And I know it's a larger issue than just the high school. Is there a way that we can look into hardwiring for the classrooms for these kids? I don't know what the cost would be, maybe substantial, maybe we can't afford it, but it's something to think about for our kids, that's all.
Appreciate it, Stephanie, thank you.
They did a great job. These students did a great job.
They did.
Always.
Good job, guys.
Mike also, lot number 16, block 1, New Jersey, like at 2:30 Warren Avenue, Florida. I got something here from NJSBA. It's news, school board notes dated May 3rd this year. When you read the blurb, it says, the NJSBA and its member boards of education believe that parents are our most important partners in education. And we welcome parental input and communication, right? That's what it says here in the New Jersey School Board Association. So when we're talking about the sex curriculum, shouldn't parents have input? Shouldn't parents be a partner?
Yes.
Shouldn't parents have the ability to communicate with professional development companies such as with these companies that have failed for the last 40 years? Do you all know who Dan Rice is? Nobody knows who Dan Rice is? I'll leave this for you. There's 9 copies. I do research. People think I'm crazy. He is pushing a narrative in his own words. It's right here for all of you to see and read. That's his own words. They're pushing an ideology of the LGBTQ plus community into sex education, in his own words. If we're going to go forward with this, one other thing, you spoke to Assemblywoman Hader in Park.
Yes,
What were their replies?
Essentially, they were pretty new on the job. You know that they were both sworn in January, that they were gonna look at the concerns that we raised and look into it, but they didn't state any definitive position or agree to write any immediate letters, but they were very receptive, and we're gonna look into the issues.
And what was the chief of staff for Gordon Johnson?
We will be meeting with Gordon Johnson. He was sick the day that we had scheduled, so the chief of staff was rather silent because it really wasn't his meeting. It was more for Senator Gopal.
And what did Senator Gopal say?
You've seen in the press, he parroted. He thought some of the standards went a little bit far, but there was flexibility at the district level, and nothing that you haven't seen in the press. I mean, I don't want to mischaracterize or
Well, you had a conversation with him, and I'm sure he gave you some kind of answer in the dialogue.
Yeah, but it wasn't strictly limited to the sex education standards either. There were Chapter 44 and many other current issues.
So when we're talking about, what's his name? Answer. That's out of Rutgers, right? They partner with Advocates for Youth, Planned Parenthood, and so on and so on and so on. You know this, right? And they've been doing this for 40 years, and they have failed for 40 years. They push an ideology of the LGBTQ plus community on children. And when you read about Answer says teens for teens. And teens start theoretically at the age of 13. So why are we trying to push this kind of education into kindergartners through 6th grade? We all have a moral responsibility to our children. I want you all to think you are all good people, and you've been put in a very bad spot.
Yes.
By politics,
Yes.
radical politics.
Yeah, that's true.
And sometimes I love you all. And I know deep down when you look yourselves in the mirror, you look and say you feel filthy because of what they're doing to you. They don't have any respect for you as a board. They don't bring any communication. They don't partner with you. They run all these types of radical ideological laws, and they want you to do their dirty work. That's why I keep calling out Senator Johnson to show up.
Yes.
Because he's the one that co-sponsored this. And he has put you all in very bad positions against your morals. He has. And he needs to be held accountable, not you, him. And I disrespect that he is sick. If he is sick, what a leader does is make another call back. You should not have to make another call back to a leader. A leader says, I'm sick today, let's reschedule, and I understand it's a very sensitive matter. He is not doing that. He is leaving you all to do his dirty work. And that is not right to you. And it's not right to this town. Because you're taking the brunt of all the emotions. And I don't think it's right. And I hope Senator Johnson mans up, comes down, we can do a nice town hall meeting, right?
We'll raise it with him. We will raise
Not
it.
alcohol beverages, but I think he needs to come down because he owes that to each and every one of you. He does. This is about morals. He put politics over morals. And he needs to be accountable to not just you, but to all of us. Thank you.
Appreciate it, Mickey.
Love you guys. Give it.
Come on.
Give it yours, come on.
You can do better than that, Paula.
Come on, Boston's on a losing streak. Anybody wants to read about damn rights, it's right here.
Anyone else? Okay, do we have any raised hands?
Mr. Foley, I am promoting you to panelist. Please feel free to share your video and your comment. Please state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes. If there are any other members of the public who wish to speak, please do raise your hand now. Mr. Foley?
Mr. Foley, can you hear us? Now we go to Irina.
Irina, I'm promoting you to panelist. Please feel free to share your video and your comment. Please state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes. Irina?
Irina, can you hear us? You seem to be muted.
Yes, yes, I can. I have two very quick questions. Irina Karash, 233 Tremont. My first question is, how are we doing with the new calendar on the
Well, why don't you give us all your questions and then.
August, but it would be great to know when school would start. And the other one is, how are we doing with a permanent principal for school one?
If those are your two questions, then thank you for your questions. The calendar, as I mentioned before, will be available at the next board meeting. We are meeting with the union, creating a new calendar under the, with working with them. So it's, I think, will be a very nice calendar for a lot of people in the district. Additionally, the school one and all of our postings for administrative positions will be up tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. They are pushed out to all of the websites, to all of the newspapers, everything coming tomorrow at 9 a.m.
And can I ask when you're targeting to have hopefully the school one principal in? Because I really don't want to be going into July, August when they're sorting out classrooms with someone who's not familiar with the school at all.
So our goal is to appoint someone as soon as possible. We have to legally post it for about 2 weeks. We'll be posting it for about 10 days. And then we'll start the interview process. There are some committee members that we have formed already, the committees, which include, we'll be reaching out to board members, we'll be reaching out to some parents. I've already spoken to some parents through the PTAs, and we'll be going through a process that's all inclusive for everyone making those decisions for all of the administrative positions that are available.
Perfect, I appreciate it, because last year was a little difficult not having an permanent administrator in place in the summer. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Irina.
Mr. Foley?
Hello.
Hi.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can.
Go ahead.
Okay. Hi, my name's Ed Foley and I work for you. And I was wondering, I was hired for a year, but I realized that, but I wasn't hired on and there was other positions and I wanted to know why I wasn't hired.
So we don't talk about employment during our public session, Mr. Foley. I would commend you to reach out to the superintendent to discuss that matter.
I had talked to Jack and Jack postponed me for like, it's been a week.
So in the letter that all employees receive, if they're not being rude or if they're renewed, there's a process that's outlined, and if you just follow that process, and just like there's a chain of command, if your immediate supervisor does not get back to you, you can go up to the next level. In this case, if buildings and grounds is not being contacted, you need to contact myself or Ms. Taylor, and we will be more than happy to get back to you with the responses that anyone is requesting. That's extended to any employee, and that's a process that we follow that's outlined in our policies.
Okay, all right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Ms. Hans Silver, I'm promoting you to panelist. Please feel free to share your video and your comment. Please state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes. If there are other members of the public who wish to speak out in Zoom land, please raise your hand now. Ms. Hans Silver?
Hello, Esther Hans Silver, 2426 5th Street, Fort Lee. So as a parent of a junior at the high school, I want to commend the students for speaking so articulately about their concerns. And I also wanted to really say thank you to Dr. Daniello and Ms. Karuba. I'm fortunate that both of my kids had Dr. Daniello. His passion and dedication was really unparalleled. You know, we talked about things that he's done, but one legacy that he leaves behind is the summer math advancement program for the middle school. That was an idea that he had when he saw kids taking these classes out of district. And that's been an amazingly successful program. I also want to mention Lauren Karuba. She is an amazingly hard worker who has done so much for our district. So I really wish her the best wherever she's going. So Fort Lee has had a great reputation for recruiting and retention. Once we established a stable superintendent, So I'm kind of worried about 3 administrators leaving, technically 5 within a 1-year period if you include the 2 superintendents. So I'm just hoping this is not a sign that administrators are bailing, because that's a big red flag. And I also had some questions. One, for CUR, the accelerated experience for incoming high school students. I was kind of wondering just exactly what the program was, and is it for all students, or how are you going to be picking? 5 CUR, the college prep course. I noticed this year it's $275,000. So it's an increase of $100,000 from last year. So I'm trying to figure out what accounts for that big increase. And then 7 CUR, the William Patterson agreement. Do we know yet which classes and what the times are? Because it seems like it's pretty late in the year and it'll be really disruptive for the schedule, because I know they need to kind of finish that up so students know which classes they can and can't take for the fall. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Esther.
Thank you. So for CUR, that was the first question. Ms. Baker, I'll take 5 and 7.
Hi, Ms. Hunt-Silver. Ms. Diane Baker. So for 4 CUR regarding the accelerated summer program for incoming freshmen, that is a program that's going to service 100 students. So any student that wants to sign up can sign up. And then as far as your second question, which was related to the increase in cost, that's to include a summer college essay application bootcamp program, which we didn't offer last summer. So we're offering the SAT prep courses, as well as the college prep seminar and the college essay writing. It's called the application bootcamp. So that's the additional service that's being offered this summer.
And 7 CUR Patterson contract. So many of the classes are the classes that the students are currently taking. So for example, psychology will be a dual enrollment class, but it will just fit into the curriculum or fit into the program for the William Patterson classes. We have brochures get ready to go out, and we're aware of the delay, but we just had to make sure a lot of the questions were answered, just like with the other programs that we will be offering. But the basics of the classes for the freshman year for students are classes that they currently can take, and now they will be receiving credit. So it's really no change to the schedule, except adding a component where if a student does take a psychology class, they will now have credit towards a William Patterson degree.
Okay. Just one quick follow-up that I forgot to ask about the SAT tutoring. So I know this was the first year that we had them. If it turns out that the kids, who took the class, they didn't do better or they didn't perform, better as expected, is there any clause in the agreement that lets you kind of back out of it if it turns out that their tutoring services didn't meet your expectations?
So the students that did participate fully, we saw a 300% gain in their SAT from the pre and the post. We also recognize that some of the students, we've tried to get in as fast as we can for some SAT preps. This is a little bit more planning, working with Ms. Karuba, and she's anxious to help us before she leaves. We hope to get more students who are actively participating, and as we set the program parameters, we hope that more will participate. But we did see a significant growth with the students who did come and do all of the work. There was a shift in some cases where the students who weren't able to attend as many, we shifted the assignments and made it more amenable to them. But we hope to have more students participate because we do have a documented growth. We have the data points to show that.
Okay, because the ones who just took it, I guess two weeks ago, I guess it was at the high school, they haven't gotten their scores yet, right? Unless you've gotten them.
We have the practice test that they so we're assuming once we see the scores, but that's the percentages we were getting when we did the pre and post assessment. We saw a 300% gain.
Thank you.
Did that start in 9th grade? This class that the kids will be taking, how does that work? It starts in 9th grade?
I'll stay after and answer your question.
Okay, because it's $2,700 per kid in the program.
Stephanie, he said he would stay answer your specific question after.
Oh, okay, I just want to make sure.
We have one more raised hand, and then I'll ask for a motion to close public.
MI,
Can you hear us?
I'm promoting you to panelists. Please feel free to share your video and your comment. Please state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes. MI.
Can you hear us? One last try here, can you hear us? I guess not. We promoted you to panelist, if you can hear us. Okay, could I have a motion to close the floor to the public? Motion Rubino, second Morel, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Let's move to resolution.
I'm sorry, did you answer
Okay, let's move on to resolutions. May I have a motion to approve items 1B through 5B?
Motion, Rama. Second.
Motion Rhonda, second Richter. Roll call, please.
Wait, where are we? I'm sorry.
We're 1B through 5B, and I think everyone's name is on 3B,
Yes.
so.
Yes. Mr. Rubino.
Pass.
Next.
Ms. Morel.
Yes, I abstain on my name for 3B.
So noted. Ms. Cho.
Yes, I abstain to my name on 3B.
So noted. Ms. Curry.
Yes, I abstain on my name on 3B.
So noted. Ms. Stasu.
Yes, abstain for my name on 3B.
Ms. Richter.
Yes, same, 3B, abstain.
So noted. Ms. Ramba.
Yes, same thing, I think, we'll just all on that, so,
Yeah.
in one shot.
Ms. Kim.
Same, yes, 3B abstain.
Ms. Colbert.
Yes, abstain as to my name on 3B.
Mr. Rubino.
Yes, abstain my name on 3B as well.
May I have a motion to approve
Motion
items
carries.
1B and G?
Motion.
Second.
Motion Morel, second Richter. Roll call, please.
Ms. Curry.
Yes.
Ms. Ramba. Yes. Ms. Cho.
Yes.
Ms. Richter.
Yes.
Mr. Rubino.
Yes.
Ms. Kim.
Yes.
Ms. Stasu.
Yes.
Ms. Morel.
Yes.
Ms. Colbert.
Yes.
Motion carries.
May I have a motion to approve items 1 CUR through 5 CUR and 7 CUR?
Motion.
Second, Rama.
Motion Richter, second Ramba. Roll call, please.
Ms. Stasu.
Absolute no on 2CUR.
Yes to the remainder?
Yep.
Ms. Kim.
Yes.
Ms. Ramba.
Yes.
Mr. Rubino.
Yes, with the exception of 2CR, I vote no.
Ms. Richter.
Yes.
Ms. Cho.
Yes.
Ms. Morel.
No on 2CUR, yes on everything else.
Ms. Curry.
No on 2 CUR, yes on everything else.
Ms. Colbert.
No to 2 CUR and yes to everything else.
All but 2 CR from those identified passed. So 1, 2.
Thank you.
May I have a motion to approve items 1F through 13F? Motion.
Second.
Motion Curry, second Morel. Roll call, please.
Keisha was in the middle of, Keisha
Oh,
was in the middle of
I see.
speaking.
You heard Nikki say something, you went.
Oh,
Yes, sorry.
sorry.
You say for the record, Ms. Taylor, that way they'll hear you. With the, I think the outcome of the vote.
Yes. 1, 3, 4, 5, and 7 passed. 2 CUR fails.
I'm sorry. We've got Matt Lee waiting to do, I'm just kind of trying to move through it, sorry. May I have a motion to approve items 1F through 13F?
Ms. Curry motioned, and the second was?
Curry and second Morel.
Ms. Richter?
Yes.
Ms. Curry?
Yes.
Mr. Rubino?
Yes.
Ms. Kim?
Yes.
Ms. Ramba?
Yes.
Ms. Stasu?
Yes.
Ms. Joe?
Yes.
Ms. Morel?
No on 13F.
So noted. Ms. Colbert?
Yes.
Motion carries.
May I have a motion to approve, motion carries, okay. May I have a motion to approve items 1P through 18P?
Motion.
Second.
Motion Morel, second Richter, roll call please.
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Curry?
Yes.
Ms. Morel?
And I'm sorry to do this, but I do this all the time. So on 2P, I'm saying no. And it's with love. And on 4P, I'm saying no to two names, to Stephen and to Lauren. I love them both. I don't want them to lose. Everything else is yes. Oh, wait, one other thing. And on, where was it? On 14P, I'm voting no to one name.
So noted.
Thank you.
Yes on the rest? Yes on the rest.
Yes, yes was on the rest. I just give you all the notes. Everything else is a yes.
So noted. Ms. Kim?
Yes.
Mr. Rubino?
Yes.
Ms. Richter?
Yes.
Ms. Dassu?
Yes.
Ms. Rama?
Yes.
Ms. Colbert?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Is there any old business?
Ms. Colbeth, I just wanted to, I'm not sure if Mike mentioned it before, the color run last week, I'm not sure if he said that also, but I just wanted to say, I was down at the end, the other end of it, where the kids, everybody's going at the end, and the students that were there were excellent. A little girl got chalk in her face, and I took some pictures I'm actually gonna send to you, John, that they stopped and they had water and they were helping her. I mean, the grandmother was right there and said she'd take her aside, the little girl stayed with them, but they were all pleasant and having a great time, and I just appreciated that they were taking care of this little girl, like, you know, teenagers sometimes don't think about it, but they really did. They made an effort, which I really appreciated.
Anyone else? So, I think everyone knows, but if not, Matt Lee is our representative from the New Jersey School Boards Association, and he's gonna work with us, hopefully expeditiously, to set some goals for the board. Come on up, Matt.
You need your easel first, Matt, or we'll go PowerPoint? I'm going to share my screen.
The floor is yours.
Okay, evening all. It's been a while. Nice to be in Fort Lee again.
Hey, Matt.
How are you? So, as was mentioned earlier, I'm here to talk to you guys about goal setting. This is the time of year when most boards of education take stock of how they performed as a board and how their administration has performed through the CSA evaluation, and use that as a springboard to talk about the things that they want to achieve in the coming year. So that's what we're going to do, have a little conversation about that tonight. I just do want to review a couple things about goal setting. There we go, little delay on there. So, as we've talked about in the past, and I know I've spoken to a number of the board members already about goal setting in prior years, we talked about goals in terms of a system approach. And the idea, of course, is that we are going to assess where we are, we're going to look to the things that we need to achieve, and then we're going to reassess how we performed, and then begin the cycle all over again. And it looks very much like this. And this one is plotted against the calendar. As you can see in the upper left-hand corner of the circle, we start with the goal-setting process for both the district and the board, and also the superintendent. And that again is right on time with the time frame we're starting tonight. Once those goals are set and approved by the board, the superintendent then goes off with the administrative team and creates action plans. And again, this fits very much in with the concept of the board describing what needs to happen, and the superintendent figuring out how to achieve those goals. The next piece is periodic reporting out on goals, and this should be really very much in line with the nature of the goals themselves. You can see there we have a sample schedule of November, January, and March. But if that doesn't make sense for the goals that the board has set in particular, then create a schedule for reporting out that really works with the nature of those goals. At the bottom of the circle, we see the evaluation process beginning. The superintendent evaluation process has kicked off for many districts already. The Board of Education typically is putting its input into the CSA evaluation about this time as well. And with the goal, of course, by meeting the statutory deadline of July 1 for the superintendent evaluation. Dependent upon the board's practices, the board's self-evaluation can fall in line with that calendar as well. Some boards like to do their board self-evaluation at the end of the calendar year to reflect the teamwork of the board for its entire term. And some like to do it around this time so that it falls in line with the goal-setting activities for the district as well. So that's our board governance cycle. That's not good. There we go. So a couple notes about the differences between district goals and board goals. When we talk about district goals, we like to say that everyone owns the district goals. They are collaboratively set between the board and the superintendent. The board indicating what are the things that they need to have accomplished, and the CSA supplying the what, or the action plans and the how those things get done. And of course, the CSA is then evaluated on the results of those goals, whether those have been accomplished or not, and talking about the reasons for if they were not. Now, those are in contrast with board goals. Board goals are different in nature. They are about the processes and procedures owned by the board, and they are evaluated in conjunction with the board self-evaluation. Keep in mind that if the board can't act on and control the things that they're looking to do in their board goals, then that's probably not an appropriate board goal. It's more a district goal. Just like to talk a little bit about stakeholder roles in forming goals for a district. When we talk about all of the stakeholders, and we have the major groups depicted here on the chart. We have the community, the board, the superintendent and team, and then educators. And as you can see on the right-hand side of the chart, we've kind of sketched out what are the things that are appropriate for each of these stakeholder groups to contribute to goal setting. And they are very much in line with their visibility into what it is that's happening in the district. Now, it's very appropriate that the community can talk about what it is they hope that their school district can achieve, their values and aspirations. When it gets down to the board level, you can see that the board gets to refine those areas of focus and the intent, working along with the superintendent. They also are responsible for supplying the resources that are needed to achieve those goals. And then finally, of course, as we talked about before, the appraisal of the superintendent relative to the achievement of those goals is another important part of the board's responsibilities. Moving down to the superintendent and their team. While the board defines the what within the goals, the superintendent defines the how. And they do that by sketching out the programs and the tactics that are going to be needed to achieve the goals that were set by the board, and also by responsibly applying the resources that were dedicated by the board to achieve those goals. And then finally, when we hit the educators level, where essentially the delivery and assessment and adaptation of personalization of instruction happens, that's basically the end of the chain. And now just a bit of an overlay over this, because there's often a question about how does SMART goals fit into the goal setting process for a school district? Well, all of the criteria that you see normally applied to SMART goals do appear within the goal setting process of a school district. But unlike what you may see in a corporate environment, the goal setting and the goal execution are not concentrated in the same stakeholder group as they are in corporate world. So you can see that the achievable, relevant, time-bound pieces of a SMART goal are worked out the superintendent. And then the superintendent and his or her team create the specific and measurable pieces of the SMART goal, and of course are responsible for executing on those. And then when we talk about how boards have each of these stakeholder groups contribute their piece of the pie to the goal setting process, you can see within the community, right? They are responsible for voting in their members of the board. They can speak at public meetings. They may participate in public surveys or public forums. And they also can participate in strategic planning if the board chooses to do that for their strategic planning. So that's their avenue for participating in goals. When it comes to the board, of course, they're working within their committee meetings, they're working with their board meetings and their discussions with their administration to figure out those areas to focus on and how to apply resources. Superintendent and their team are working within their administrative team meetings, they're working within curriculum meetings and planning meetings to actually get down to those very specific programs and tactics. And then finally, the educators are contributing their piece in all the instructional settings that are relevant to the district. So when we talk about considering what goals to set for a district, we look at a number of things. We look at the vision for the district and the district mission statement. We look at the strategic plan. We look at data. Data is most important in goal setting because we want the results of the goals to be measurable. And also, we want to look at previous goals to see if they were achieved or they're in progress. Those are the springboard for setting our new goals. As we always do when we talk about goal setting, we always start with our mission statement. The mission statement is really where we define who we are and what we hope to achieve within our efforts. And again, just something that we like to use as a quick reminder when we start our goal setting process. So this is what we're all about here before Lynn. So we didn't have goals to work off for our prior year. So we're going to start with a few questions now that may be helpful in helping you start to brainstorm the things that we want to talk about. And I would encourage you to think back not just at the things that you may desire, but think about things that have been actually indicated by the information that you received over time. What is it that the data says that we need to concentrate on? Because that's the best way to actually come to specific goals that are understood by everyone, because you've all been exposed to the same data over time. So initially, what are the things that we talk about that have the greatest impact on student achievement? What are the things that may be in progress that may require increased focus or continued focus? And those are kind of springboards, as I said, for what we want to talk about. So I'm going to pull the chart over, or the pad over, and we're going to start to jot down some things that may be relevant.
I did, or they want to meet, you know what, they wanted to stay because they want to meet everyone, I don't know.
I feel bad.
Why don't we just take a moment while he's setting
Yeah,
up
why don't we just, Matt, could we just take 2 minutes, all those students are staying, I went to tell them that they could leave, but they want to meet the board, and so, why don't you guys come up and
Why don't we just stand up for a moment?
For Matt.
Very nice to meet you. I was.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
I want that copy of the wonderful there. Well done, guys. What's that? I'm gonna need just my campaign. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, it was.
Nice to meet you. Job well done.
Yearly finally plans those trips in those countries, and the Oh, yes.
I'm sorry, man. We just can't stand it when the kids stay. We want them to go home and, you know, from school to here.
It's like when you're in a restaurant, put your wrist on, you go to bed. What's that?
I understand it's given to us, but of course, we like hearing, we like listening to students.
Okay, we are now unmuted. Thank you, Matt, for
Okay,
your patience.
we're back in public session, guys.
Thank you, Matt.
Oh.
Thank you so much for being
Just
understanding.
for a minute.
Okay. Now Matt's gonna
Just
write
for the,
everything we
for the
said.
public, we muted for 5 minutes or so because our high school speakers wanted to personally meet the administration and the board members. So that's why we muted, but we're back on with Matt Lee on goal setting.
Okay, so we're at the point right now where the board would begin to offer suggestions for the goals for the district. Certainly, Mr. Kravitz is welcome to as well, since he has quite a deep look into the district on a daily basis. So I'll leave it up to you, Madam President, to call on your board to make suggestions.
I mean, anyone can jump in with any ideas, but I don't even know if this is the type of thing that, we haven't done this for so long, but I know professional development has been something that we had some issues with that will be coming back like full throttle. And so I think that that is going to be a very high level area of interest for our superintendent.
Like,
Sure.
oh, you're still going, go.
Well, we had an equity audit, I think by Rutgers, which was, generally very positive, but there were areas in that too for focus. I think diversifying our workforce so that it begins to mirror a little bit more or a lot more our student population. Someone else can jump in.
I just want to, when it comes to curriculum, I want to improve the curriculum and constantly keep it moving forward as far as up to date. But I wanted to include not only for college bound, but for workforce bound. I think we need to get back to vocational again. We have kind of lost track of that over the years.
Pretty universal theme these days. Yep.
Exactly.
Okay, so I hear a piece about equity, I hear a piece about professional development, and a piece about college and career readiness, right? So any other sort of high level
I think
thoughts?
Holly's point was different from college readiness.
Like non-college bound.
Exactly.
No, I understand
Right,
Holly's
but
point.
yeah.
What I'm saying is that there was a general thought to start with about curriculum,
Right.
and that we need to service both folks that are heading for college and folks that are heading for careers.
Right.
So
Which Matt knows about because Dan was one of the forces that put into the last time we had a convention. He did a seminar on that, and that was one of the first seminars that ever came about with that. There had been a lot of little talk, but he kind of put it in the forefront.
yeah, we ended up doing a pretty expensive research study on it,
Exactly.
and issued a report on it, with a bunch of suggestions. Yeah, absolutely.
So you're recommending like 2 or 3 of these, right?
Usually boards will set between 3 and 5.
3 and 5. Okay.
Yep.
Did you not like any of the things?
No, I'm just looking for the high level stuff, and then we're going to wordsmith them.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay, Elisa?
Well, I think just looking back at our older goals, the last time we visited in 2019, just about revenue sources and making sure that we can sustain everything once the ESSER funds run out and all of that kind of stuff. So I think that would be more.
I'm sorry, I lost my
This
Go ahead. Go ahead. No, you use your mic.
Just move your mic closer.
Oh, sure.
Just the financial stability, because ESSER programs will be running out and funding and whatnot, so.
Yep, okay. So develop a financial plan to deal with the diminishment of ESSER funds. Yep, okay.
Lisa's always looking at the money, thank you.
So those are 4 pretty solid goals. Do those sound like they're on target with some of the things that we've been discussing for the last year or so?
I just have a question. I'm looking at the old goals from 2019, 2020,
And the district goals talk more about the curriculum and finance, but the board goals focus on the professional development. So do we have to?
That was professional development, I think, for us.
Yeah. You're not talking about for us?
No.
Oh.
I'm talking about the staff. We've been
Okay.
kind of prohibited and handcuffed.
Yeah, no, that's why I was asking us.
Yeah.
Well, I do think we need a board retreat.
Yeah, I think
Well,
we need.
right, that's the next thing, that's,
No,
that's
I think board goals, we're not doing those tonight.
No,
are
we're
we?
doing district goals, you're
Okay.
right, so
Okay.
you're talking about.
No, I just thought we were
professional development.
separating
Do you want to
the.
answer that?
Right.
It's up to you whether we do board goals. I'm here, so if you want to do them, we can do them. If you haven't had any discussion about them so far, then maybe we won't.
Yeah, I think it probably, given the hour
Yes.
also, that
I didn't
another
notice.
time would be better. And we could.
So, yeah, those are good for district goals.
Okay,
Because
so-
the curriculum kind of also, meshes with student achievement.
Yeah.
Which is. a
Sure,
good one.
absolutely. So why don't we start with the first goal, which is professional development. So tell me what we want to happen, describe that. What's the action in there?
Well, I mean, that really is more
So-
for our
So
superintendent.
I'm gonna jump in and say, so let's take a data point.
Yeah.
Currently, the district does not have any professional development scheduled for a lot of their programs.
Okay,
0.
all right,
So the goal, our baseline is 0. So if you said we're going to increase professional development for all of our staff across the district, right? Any employee of our district, that might be a 20% increase in professional development as measured by the number of programs and starting to track the data, meaning the number of times people are going out or where the programs are running and the participation rate.
Yep, so I think when you start to talk about percentages, that's probably something that should sit in your action plan. From the board's perspective, describing the what that should happen. What should happen is that you should develop a program of professional development to enrich.
Reflect the needs of the current needs of our program.
Can I just ask Ms. Kravitz a question about that? I'm very thrown off by that. So how are our teachers getting their professional development hours that they need? I mean, I'm getting professional development, I'm going crazy if they give me any more.
So with professional development now, we're allowing teachers to go out, they sign up.
Right, but they're going not.
And they're getting it through our safe schools, our vector training, so all those compliant trainings. Oh.
I feel like a way of living over
Sorry. So currently, we do approve teachers to receive professional development. If they want to go to a conference, they have to fill out a request form. We do that. And they also receive professional development hours through completing their state compliance training. So anything that's, that's on our Safe Schools or our Vector platform, that's how they're getting their.
I just, there's a little disillusion that we don't offer it,
We do offer it.
Right.
We do
Maybe there
offer
was a
that.
decision by PERC or one of the organizations that said that we could not do professional development without please
Right, without
approval.
the approval, you're right.
And that's when that 187-day thing happened. And so because of the 187 days, they were like anything, even during convocation, they refused. They would even threaten to file a grievance that something that was being presented constituted professional development. So it was.
That makes sense.
Very difficult.
Thank you.
Yes, I lost the end of that sentence, so what was the last piece?
Develop a district-wide plan for potential professional development.
Reflective, you said, that's all I got.
Reflect our program.
Reflective of our needs or something.
Reflective.
To enhance our workforce.
Yeah, to enhance all of our workforce. I'd say all,
Yes.
To enhance our workforce in all departments.
in all departments.
For everybody who can't read my handwriting, no fear, I type this out. Send it back to you. Okay. 2. Second one came from you again, Paul, you had 2.
Equity.
The equity piece.
Either equity or to diversify our workforce so that It mirrors the student population.
Okay. So are those part of the same issue or?
I kind of put them down separately.
Diane, why
Go
don't
ahead,
you
Diane.
comment, Diane?
So diversifying the workforce was one of the findings in our equity audit.
Yeah, that's what I was guessing.
That's one of, was finding number 3.
Sure. So would it be fair to say that the goal would be to develop a plan to remediate the areas that were identified in the equity audit?
Perfect.
Yep. When was the audit performed?
July of 2021.
My handwriting's getting worse. Okay. Holly. Your piece was around, it started out around student achievement and then kind of pivoted to
It started with curriculum
workforce.
and went to, and kind of ended with student achievement because they're the ones that are gonna be benefiting from more emphasis on vocational, more work-bound ready.
Okay.
Kind of curriculum.
Okay. So I'll turn to you, Mr. Kravis. What do you think would be the best way to phrase how that would be executed within the district?
To create an action plan.
Okay.
In which the needs of the students who are create an action plan in which the needs of students will be addressed for the vocational trades.
Make it pretty.
Thank you very much. Pretty, but for various opportunities.
Yeah.
Big fan of the word opportunity. An action plan in which various opportunities will be provided for students.
I'm sorry, Max, but we all have to go now. The buzzer just went off.
Which will enhance student achievement. That could be the end of it, which will enhance student achievement. Who talked about the finance? Elisa. Nice. Elisa hit it. Okay, so the fourth one was finance.
Yes.
Akeisha, why don't you give a shot for finance? There you go.
Free reign, Akeisha.
Well, say what you say and then Akeisha.
At least what you said, it's pretty great. Sustainable, I don't know,
Start it off.
We do have lots of grant funding, so, develop plans, since we're doing plans.
Financial plan, right?
Either sustain programs funded with ESSER or funded with grants and or, you know, because I guess I wonder, like, is some of the grant funding used to remediate? And so the hope, you know, is that the grant funding would be needed if people like us, for
Yeah, but you
example.
gotta make it nice.
Air conditioning
I was
for
just-
all. Air conditioning for all.
Remember that, Matt?
I'm sorry?
When one of us wrote to you one time.
Total completion,
We put something up.
all approved capital reserve projects within 3 months.
Correct.
3 months.
Oh, and I said correct.
I don't think that's what, I don't
But that's a
remember
good goal.
hearing
That's part of it,
Elisa
that's part of
say
it, though.
that.
It is part of it.
That is a good goal to set.
Yeah,
timelines.
allocate a finance to improve facilities by.
How about complete our approved capital reserve projects within, and then, like 18 months, well, yeah.
So this is the fifth goal, or are we not doing 4?
I thought you were up
No,
to
So
five.
the financial piece that I was
I am.
talking about was more about stability and just making sure that we can sustain either the programming or figure out and make sure, and especially with the big capital improvement withdrawals coming up, that we continue to be financially sound. That was more so where I was going,
Yeah,
than
see?
actual timelines with capital projects, only because
To
you
have
never
a
know,
plan
but.
to fill where we're using our ESSER grant funds. Right, which I think the concept.
And then maybe to her latter point, to continue, can you go back, Matt, so I can see what we wrote? To continue to, contribute, to our reserves at a consistent rate.
Yeah, sure, and I think maybe
Well, progressive
identify,
rate.
maybe
Progressive
identify
rate.
other sources of funding too, or.
Revenue.
Yeah.
At
So
a
you started,
progressive
right?
rate. At a progressive rate, yeah.
At a rapidly increasing rate.
All right, don't get
I think
crazy.
we're trying to get to, I think what Elisa's trying to get to is with all of this funding, you know, and with our, you know, the increased surplus, undesignated surplus, we were able to, as most districts were able to add, you know, large amounts to their capital reserves. Our board is actually using a lot of those funds this year to do a much needed, AC project to complete the AC in the district. So I think, Elisa's, her thought process is more so about ensuring that we ramp that back up. I don't know how you say that as a goal, or make it consistent so that we don't necessarily deplete it, but that we continue to contribute to our reserves at a, I like Holly's word, progressive rate. I don't know how you measure that, but I like the word.
You want to wordsmith that whole four on that?
Sorry?
Do you want to wordsmith the whole four, or you think there's a way to combine those two?
That's what I'm kind of going through right now.
I almost feel like maybe we're not sustaining those programs. I don't know if they're remedial programs, Robert, so that we would be sustaining them.
So, I mean, because some of these programs are also to accelerate learning, to make up for gaps.
Close the gap.
Close, you know, as close as we can get. So the idea is to offer the programs, but at some point you won't have to offer them. Or I guess identify, if we were to, just the nature of, you know, the magnitude of the program that we might be able to sustain, because we might not be able to do as many summer programs moving forward, just to be realistic. We might not be able to sustain all of these summer programs that we're offering.
So if we attached onto the end of this, so develop a plan to sustain programs funded with ESSER funds as.
To maintain academic growth, academic growth. So we're looking other ways to maintain or to attempt to maintain academic growth. So our goal is academic growth, and then I would do the measure as measured by, and then we do that.
I don't know if we should say to sustain programs funded, because to her point, and one of the things that they'll say, and we just had a federal audit the other day, good job, Assistant Superintendent. We just had an audit on these funds, so they talked about one of the things that you try to do when you have funds is you try to allocate them to non-recurring items. For that very reason, because the funding is going away. So I probably think we should change sustain programs funded and say that differently. Robert, how could we say that differently? Develop, you know.
So is your point, Hakisha, that we need to take a look at the nature of them and evaluate them to see whether they need to be sustained? Or there's a need for them?
I think it was more so about ascertaining just revenue sources and to make sure, like, if that is just, I used Esther as an example, but it wasn't so much the focus of that goal. It was more so just making sure that we're fiscally sound and able to support where we've been, I guess, up to this point and continue that growth.
I mean, you can, you know, there's been a chunk of capital reserve funding spent, so the goal is to, you know, build up your capital reserve.
So the thought that I had was, given the capital reserves that are being allocated currently to all of the air conditioning and facilities projects, and speaking to your goal of being fiscally sound, perhaps an alternative goal could be to, somehow build up your capital reserve, to a certain point, or to maintain your capital reserve in some way. I'm not quite sure what the exact lingo would be, but that might be something that's.
I think I would encourage you to think a little bit more specific than just to be fiscally sound, right? Because that's a board's responsibility to start with. So if there's a slice of that, if you will, that is most important in the coming year, and I thought this was a great example. We may not have found the wording we like yet, but that's clearly going to hit sometime in the next 12 months for a lot of things. So that's a very good specific goal around fiscal responsibility. So if that makes sense.
I think Elisa, she was cited as an example, but I think she wants to speak to stability. And so I think we need to cross that out and maybe add something like, I don't know if we want to say replenish capital reserves, or if I want to say something like, because one of the things that I talked to the auditor about, and I can't remember the percentage now, but we kind of talked about reserve levels. And I know, I think Elisa was really speaking broader about revenues and all stability, but I think if we're going to speak specifically around our reserves, there are reserve levels that are targeted based on your enrollment and your long-range facility plan.
Absolutely.
So I don't know those numbers now, but maybe more close to what Elise is thinking about is to continue or to maintain reserve levels at X.
So can I just jump in? Develop a plan to address the academic needs of all of our students that maintain our current budget or maintain our budgetary constraints that are within our budgetary constraints.
That doesn't address the capital reserve.
No, but because it's becoming, this one, I think, and again, I keep saying, I'm speaking on behalf of Elisa, but everyone's saying that, so I'll speak on behalf of Elisa. I think you want to make sure everything we're doing we can sustain, right? So academically, we have to do an evaluation of all of our academic programs to make sure that we can afford them, they're working, and that they will fit into our regular budget, not looking for fund balance, not looking for ESSER funds, anything. So we need to create a plan that says, okay, which programs are working, which plans are not working, how much do they cost, do they fit in our budget if we don't have to use this or this or this.
Okay, so we've kind of jumped up a level from a specific finance goal, right? Because finance is going to be a component of what sounds like an overall program review, right?
That's my opinion.
Is that a no? We like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it encompasses a lot of what I was trying to, I guess, point out. Yes, I think we're taking on a lot of different new programs, whether it be William Patterson or whatever else it is as well. And I don't know if it's necessarily in our budget for next year. Right, so I just want to make sure that there's so many moving parts that that we're okay. I think that's really what it is. So.
Well, I think that what Mr. Kravitz just mentioned probably fits more in line with that overall objective, right?
Right.
So, right?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Fire away, Mr. Kravitz.
Develop a plan to address the academic needs of all of our students while maintaining a fiscally sound budget. No, give me another word. Anyone?
I think you said within the general.
Within the general. Within the operating budget.
Right.
Wow. The stuff, the need of all of the students within the operating budget of the district.
Addresses, that addresses.
the academic needs of all students.
in the operating budget. So we do a cost analysis of all of our program, see which ones we're using, how much they're.
Which programs are you referring to? Programs that are grant money for and the ESSER funds for?
So at the end of the day, over the next 2 years, we have to look at whatever program I'm looking to create or we are trying to create. And whatever programs we're using, we have to be able to afford it without going into the ESSER funds or, so ideally, as an example, if we create a vocational program and we save money by allowing those students to stay in district as opposed to paying for them to go to a VOTEC for County. That's a self-sustainable program, right, within our general fund budget. So by doing that, that's a positive to that. When we're looking at our math, let's say, or our assessment programs, what are we using for assessments? If it's STAR 360, how much does it cost? How much are we using it? And does it address the needs we have of all of our academic needs students? But see if we can maintain that. If we're talking about a summer program, can it be budgeted every year? Is it self-sufficient, or do we have to ask all the parents to kick in something? Right. Those are the type of things, as long as the budget within that 2% cap and everything else is afforded.
So would you consider like the things like going back or something?
Same thing,
Trying to do?
right? Yep.
Okay, so that's 4 pretty meaty goals. Is the board satisfied with those as a plan to move forward? Yeah?
Yeah,
See a couple
we're
heads.
satisfied.
So, as a non-voting member of the board, I said
Madam President, are we good with these? So,
I was good on the last page.
so without having to go back to the PowerPoint because nobody wants to do that, what happens next? What happens next is I will recap this, of course, and turn the hieroglyphics into English, and then send it back as a memo to Mr. Kravitz and to Paula. And from there, the board will, if they have to make any adjustments to the wording, certainly have the freedom to do that, but bring those to the board to be approved as your official goals for the coming year. That's an important step because, of course, those are the basis of 50% of your superintendent evaluation going into next year. So important the board approve those. The superintendent, of course, takes the next amount of time between now and the opening of school to create detailed action plans around this. And the action plans will delineate specific actions that are going to be taken, programs that are going to be used, tactics that will be used, funds that will be used, metrics for success, and those are the things against which you will judge your superintendent's performance, okay?
Let's ramp them up a little bit more than I didn't appreciate it.
thank you very much. I wordsmith those. One of the goals should be, can I wordsmith goals every?
So the action plans then are brought back to the board, right? Because it's important, while the board not dictate what happens in the action plans, they should certainly be aware of what happens in the action plans, right? And those can be points for discussion as well. But remember, there is a separation of responsibilities in a district. The board defines what happens, which we did. The superintendent defines how it happens, and that's the action plan. It should not happen that next May, when we start to talk about goals for the next year, and we start to talk about superintendent evaluation, that you haven't revisited these periodically throughout the year. This is a check-in, right? It's a check-in for the superintendent, it's a check-in for the board. It's a process of communication so that nobody gets surprised come next year when it's time to really do our job as the oversight body for the district, okay? So schedule periodic updates, whatever makes sense based on the nature of the goal, and that way everybody stays informed and nobody gets blindsided, right? All make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Would encourage you, based on what we talked about in terms of board goals, to think about what are the things that you may want to accomplish as the governing body of the district from your processes and procedures. again, you're not talking about textbooks in your board goals. You're not talking about the color of the carpet in the new wing of the high school. You're talking about how do we make our committees
Or the
work
chairs,
better?
or the chairs, the color of the chairs in the auditorium.
Oh, please don't tell me you're doing that. Okay, you know, start to think about how it is that we become a better governance body, right? Because that's your job here. Your job isn't, what?
Functioning.
Yeah, functioning helps. That's always a good one. So think about those. I don't know how much, you know, what your timeline looks like for that, but if I can come back in and talk to you about those, I'm happy to do so. So that's
And
it.
a retreat. We haven't had one of those in a long, long time. Long time. Long time.
Don't go overboard here.
Long time.
All right,
So
questions?
Matt needs to get dates.
Yeah,
Yeah.
once we started returning to in-person, my
Yeah.
calendar blew up.
I bet it did.
So, any questions? All right, thanks for,
Thank you, Matt.
Good to
Thank
see
you,
you all
Matt.
again.
Thank you so much.
I mean, can we as a group just,
Thank you. Tell us later.
Matt, can we as a group just like try to come up with a couple of board goals and email them to you? And whether
Absolutely.
that's kind of like, you know, you'll tell us, no, that's really not, you know.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Happy to do that anytime.
We appreciate you staying so late.
Yes, thank you.
Well, I'll let you know how it works out with Mrs. Lee.
Wait, what?
Best
How it works
for
out
last.
with Mrs. Lee.
And on that note,
I can use these doors here?
Yes, thanks, Matt, again.
Have a good night, guys.
thanks.
Any other business, guys? Or I'll entertain a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Motion Rubino, second Morel, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Any abstentions?
No.
Thank you all for staying so late.